Because I wanted to be cheap. I rented a house where someone died. On the very first night, I moved in the water faucet, turned on by itself. I yelled into the empty air, "You pay for the water bill." Got it. The stream of water immediately stopped flowing. I thought that was the end of it. But unexpectedly, the next day I found 3 savory dishes and 1 soup on the dining table, along with a sticky note. Split. Food cost 25 yuan. I stared blankly at that sticky note for a whole half-minute. Inside my head, I began doing high-speed math. 3 savory dishes and 1 soup, containing both meat and veggies, looking super appetizing and releasing a mouth-watering aroma. A meal like this, a restaurant outside, would cost at least 50 yuan, yet she was only asking for 25. This is a huge bargain. What is there to be scared of anyway? Being scared is nothing compared to someone like me who hasn't eaten for 3 days. I picked up my chopsticks and snapped off a shiny piece of braised pork, popping it into my mouth. Rich without being greasy, melting right on the tip of my tongue. Delicious. The point. I almost swallowed my own tongue while eating like a beast, I mumbled under my breath, sarcastically calling out my non-paying roommate. "Hey, Miss Ghost, you're pretty stingy. You know you're already dead, and all. Yet you're still calculating every little detail. Can you broaden your horizons a bit?" The space was dead silent, with only the sound of my munching. Finished eating. I satisfiedly let out a loud burp. Looking at the pile of oily dishes, my laziness relapsed again. Tried leaving that pile of dishes in the sink without washing them, considering it a test for my roommate's boundaries. Early the next morning, I was woken up by the gentle clinking of pots and dishes. I tiptoed to the kitchen door and saw the dishes in the sink were all washed squeaky clean, neatly stacked back in place. Beside them was another sticky note. Dishwashing fee 5 yuan per time. Pay at the end of the month. I was so angry I laughed out loud. All right, pretty good. I Guchen have lived for over 20 years, and this is the first time I've seen a ghost with such strict principles. My competitive streak was completely triggered. Wanna play dirty? Bring it on. I deliberately left a overflowing trash bag right at the door, blocking half the hallway, thinking to myself, throw it out for me if you're so smart. The next day, the trash bag had disappeared, and stuck on the door was a note. So slovenly. That night I worked late, overtime dragging my exhausted body back home. I fumbled around trying to turn on the light out of fear, but the living room light turned on automatically. In a corner of the yard, I suddenly felt a soft warmth right after that. A small piece of paper drifted down from the ceiling lamp. Left the light on for you. Electricity bill will be calculated separately. That tiny bit of warmth that had just sparked was immediately crushed into dust by the 4 words, electricity bill calculated separately. Rolled my eyes up at the ceiling. This giant adult baby, even after dying, still couldn't drop her petty elitist attitude. Days went by just like that in the middle of these hilarious petty battles. I gradually grasped the temper of my ghost roommate. Her name was Shen Ginglan. This was the answer she gave after I continuously wrote, "What's your name?" on sticky notes for an entire week straight. She was a neat freak. I only needed to drop a single strand of hair on the floor, and that strand would fly into the trash by itself. She was also OCD. If just one book on my bookshelf was not arranged by height, the next day it would definitely be sorted into a neat line. She cooked super well, but held a serious grudge. I only accidentally criticized once that a dish was a bit salty, and she fed me boiled veggies for 3 days straight. She was also a trash talker with a sharp tongue. I bought a discounted dress shirt and stood smugly in front of the mirror. On the mirror, a line of text condensed from steam slowly appeared. Worrying taste in fashion. Worrying taste in fashion. My wallet is even more worrying. I stomped my foot in frustration and cursed into thin air. What does it have to do with you, huh? You, stingy ghost, dead and still, demanding to split every penny. After that, the text on the mirror changed to, "We're both the same anyway." I started getting used to her presence and even kind of enjoyed it. At least I didn't have to eat instant noodles anymore. At least in this cold giant city. There was someone who always started getting used to the presence of about the two of us, hee-heh. I smiled silently, swearing in my heart that I must treat the woman beside me with absolute devotion. Even if I have to trade everything I must. Left the light on, waiting for me to get home, even though the electricity bill still had to be paid regularly. That day, my only best friend, Chen Zihao, came to visit. I had warned Shen Jinglan in advance. My friend is coming over. Today, be well behaved. Not at midair a magazine. Flew up from the sofa flipping to a page with 2 giant words, okay. Chen Zihao stepped through the door and immediately took an exaggerated deep breath. Kuchen, did you hire a maid? The house is so clean, it doesn't look like your place at all. I chuckled, forcedly just developed better living habits, that's all. Right after I finished my sentence, the TV playing an entertainment show suddenly clicked off with a snap sound. It switched to a finance channel, a male voice with standard pronunciation. Starting to analyze candlestick charts. Chen Zihao was scared to the point of shuddering. Where's the remote? Probably just a loose connection. I nonchalantly changed the channel back. While we were chatting, the cup in front of Chen Zihao slid towards the edge of the table by 5 centimeters. With a click sound, let out an ear-piercing scream. The cup moved on its own. I calmly moved the cup back to its original spot and patted his shoulder. Don't be scared. My roommate is just a bit mischievous, but she cooks pretty well. Chen Zihao looked at me in horror that glance, looking like he was staring at a psychopath. Gu Chen! His lips trembled. Are you under too much pressure? You're having hallucinations. I let out a long sigh, knowing there was no way to explain this. After Chen Zihao left, scared out of his wits, I felt a bit disappointed and sat down on the sofa. An encounter like this was destined to be lonely. No one would believe me anyway. The living room lights dimmed down a bit, becoming much softer. Turned my head to look towards the giant floor-to-ceiling glass window over there. A tall figure, wearing a white, one-piece dress, appeared in front of my eyes for the first time. Jia was still in a translucent state like a walking mist. In her hand, she held a wiping cloth, meticulously cleaning the window glass that I didn't clean thoroughly this morning. That action was so focused and serious, carrying an almost obsessive elegance. I also felt that my buddy's anxiety for the entire world's lack of understanding didn't matter anymore. In this vast city, I finally had a home and a very special companion. But good times don't last long. The company laid off staff, a cold email with a few lines of corporate jargon devoid of warmth, putting an end to 2 hours of commuting daily in exchange for my meager salary. Holding a cardboard box, I walked through the crowded streets with people passing back and forth for the first time, feeling like a piece of trash discarded. Back home, I threw myself onto the bed, pulling the blanket over my head. The long suppressed grievances and anxieties finally broke out at this moment. I didn't make a sound, just letting my eyes turn red and my chest heave violently, wanting to swallow all the injustice I suffered in the big city over the past few years. Back inside, yet unable to spit it out. Not knowing how much time had passed, from the living room softly played a classical, melodious track. That was my favorite piece, The New World Symphony by Dvorak. Once casually offhandedly mentioned over dinner. This piece sounds really good. It feels like no matter how tough the days get, everything can still be overcome. I dragged my heavy footsteps out of my room. On the dining table sat a piping hot dish, cola chicken wings, my favorite food. Beside it was a small note resting quietly with only 2 words on it. Free. My Adam's apple bobbed hard. My eye sockets burning as a drop of water fell onto the dark wood tabletop. This time, not from feeling inferior, but from a damn warmth I hadn't felt in a long time. While devouring the food, gave a self-deprecating laugh, and for the first time, said seriously to thin air, "Thanks, Chen Jinglan." In the air, there seemed to be an extremely soft sigh echoing. Plate of piping hot food, cola chicken wings, my absolute favorite dish beside. It was a small note lying quietly on top with only 2 words, free. My Adam's apple bobbed sharply, my eyes burning hot as a single, especially for a rising star like you. Just a tiny slip-up and rivals will grab you by the throat and intentionally blow it way out of proportion. If you're not careful, your acting career is basically dead after delivering this order I received. A call from my attending physician. He told me to come to the hospital for a follow-up exam. Gently, eat your fill first to have strength. I turned on my computer and started frantically submitting resumes. The reality was much harsher than what I imagined. The resumes sent out were like stones sinking into the sea. Occasionally, a few places called for interviews, only for me to be eliminated right in the first round. The balance in my bank card was gradually dwindling every day. Rent, utilities, plus Shenjinglan's notebook filled with crystal-clear recorded bills. They were like giant mountains, weighing down on me, making me unable to breathe. Anxiety was gnawing at my mind. I started suffering from constant insomnia all night long. Finally, I received an interview notification from a dream company. That was the ultimate goal in my career roadmap. I dragged out the only suit tucked away at the bottom of my chest and ironed it carefully, terrified of having even a small wrinkle. On the day of the interview, I woke up super early because I was so nervous. While buying breakfast at the coffee shop downstairs, my hand trembled, spilling a cup of hot Americano all over my pure white dress shirt. At that exact moment, I felt as if the sky was falling apart, in a miserable state. I ran back home and helplessly threw the dirty set of clothes onto the sofa. Looking at myself in the mirror with bloodshot eyes, I just wanted to drop dead and get it over with. There was only 1 hour left until the interview. I basically wouldn't make it in time to buy a new one. Was I really going to give up? Just like this. I sat flat on the ground in complete despair, slamming my fists hard against the floor. Right at this moment, I heard the sound of a washing machine. Coming from the bathroom, the sound of the motor starting and humming. I rushed over and saw the shirt stained with coffee tumbling inside the washing machine. 20 minutes later, the washing machine stopped and the drying cycle started running. Another 20 minutes passed and a clean shirt was hanging on my room door. I stared solemnly at that spick and span shirt, feeling like I was dreaming. I changed my clothes and rushed out of the house. Arriving at the subway station right during peak morning rush hour. It was so crowded that not a single drop of water could leak through. Watching the time tick away second by second, I was anxious beyond belief, sweating profusely. Right as I was about to give up and turn around to squeeze onto a bus, the subway ticket turnstile beside me suddenly gave off a beep. The green light turned on and the automatic gate opened up. I froze for a moment, but without time to overthink. I sprinted quickly toward the platform. For the subway train I needed to take, the doors were slowly closing. Oh no, I'm done for, my heart clenched. Right at the moment the train doors were about to slam shut, it was as if something got stuck between the gap, triggering a loud piercing warning chime, and then they popped open again. I scrambled and squeezed onto the train. On board, I panted heavily, my heart beating out of rhythm. Everything was way too coincidental. It felt like someone was clearing the path for me. I arrived at the company 5 minutes before the interview started. Every single second spent sitting in the waiting room for the interviewers was pure torture. When it was my turn, I took a deep breath and walked into the room. 4 interviewers sat in a row with stern faces. I was so nervous, my palms were soaked in sweat. The self-introduction speech I had prepared in advance was right at the tip of my tongue, but suddenly went blank. My brain froze up completely. Right when I was so embarrassed, I wanted to crash my head into a wall. A black signature, and on the table, suddenly rolled right next to my hand. Instinctively, I grabbed it. The icy touch made me instantly calm down a bit. I lowered my head to look down. Carved into the barrel of the pen with a knife was a small but extremely clear character. My heart immediately calmed down. That character was like a shot of adrenaline injected straight into my body. I raised my head to meet the chief interviewer's gaze, flashing a confident smile. Hello interviewers, good afternoon everyone. I am Gu Chen. During the interview that day, I performed better than ever before. A week later, received a successful hiring notification. On my first day at work, immediately requested a salary advance and rushed into, good afternoon, I am Gu Chen. In that interview, that day, I performed like never before. 1 week later, out all the harshest words. I wanted to leave, with some dignity, but when we met again that last bit of self-respect, the supermarket to buy a bottle, fine wine, along with a ton of fresh ingredients. Back home, I cooked a full table of food. I poured wine to the brim into 2 glasses raised, 1 glass toward the empty living room and said loudly, Shenjinglan, this glass is to my golden support. In midair, the remaining glass trembled slightly, making a crisp clinking sound as if answering my words. I smiled, though my eyes blurred over. I knew I wasn't alone at all. I had an invisible guardian angel. Living together, me and Shenjinglan after I got my new job, entered a phase of unprecedented harmony. I was in charge of making money to support the house, while she was in charge of keeping the home in tip-top shape, conveniently using that elitist logic to monitor my spending and plan financial strategies for me. I even started enjoying this unique companionship. Every day. Coming home from work, there was warm food and delicious soup waiting. Every month when I received my salary, there was a chief financial officer helping me set a budget. Whenever I ran into trouble at work, on my desk would mysteriously appear a few relevant books and documents. She was like a silent, enter an all-powerful butler, the most familiar stranger. I knew absolutely nothing about her past. As we became more and more in sync with each other, the curiosity inside me grew bigger and bigger as well. How on earth did she die? The news report, with vague wording on the internet, said she passed away due to a gas leak accident, but I always felt there was something off. A person who even had to arrange books on the shelf by color and height. Like someone with extreme OCD, a person who valued rules and order to such a psychotic extent. How could she make such a low-level, rookie mistake with gas leak safety? I tried asking her. Shenjinglan, how did you die? The lights in the room flickered, once the glass on the table vibrating lightly. She seemed to want to express something but was prevented by some sort of force, unable to convey information clearly. The more intense her reaction was, the more suspicious I became. I decided to start investigating from this house. I went to find the real estate broker who rented me this house back then, Aunt Zhu. I invited her to meet up at a coffee shop nearby, under the pretext of consulting about extending the lease contract. Aunt Zhu still maintained that warm and kind demeanor. When she smiled, wrinkles appeared around the corners of her eyes, looking full of sincerity. Living there is still comfortable, right? I told you. That house is in a great location. Everything is fine. It's just that something happened there before that normal people couldn't handle. Seeing how good your complexion looks, I can tell right away you definitely don't have any problems. It's indeed very good. I smiled and pretended to offhandedly bring it up. I'm just a little curious what exactly happened in that house before. I searched online, but only found a very vague news snippet saying the owner passed away due to an accident. Aunt Zhou raised her coffee cup and took a sip, her eyes clearly evading the topic. That's all in the past. It was an accident. Don't overthink it too much. Just rest assured, living there. The feng shui of that house is actually really good. Look at you. You haven't moved in long, and you've already switched to a better job. This means your luck is about to turn. She skillfully steered the conversation away, repeatedly advising me in her words not to overthink things and not to pry any further. Her enthusiasm, in my eyes right now, exuded a weird, unnatural vibe. A normal broker would only care about rent money and contracts. Why was she so concerned about my mental health over and over again, stopping me from looking into the past of this house? This meeting not only failed to clear up suspicions inside me, but on the contrary, pushed my vigilance up to the highest level. That night, I had a dream that made me feel terrified. In the dream, I stood in the middle of a thick, stark white fog, unable to clearly see the surroundings. I heard, "Now so exquisite this picture is awesome," heard a voice that was both familiar and strange. Engaged in a fierce argument, it was Shen Jinglan, her voice filled with anger and disappointment. "I treated you like a real sister. How dare you touch this money? Aunt Cho, you're crazy." The voice of another woman was very vague, carrying a bit of pleading and exhaustion. "Jinglan, help me just one more time. Just the last time, I promise I'll make up for that deficit." "No way. This is client money. You're committing a crime. So you're forcing me into a corner." The argument grew increasingly heated, until finally I heard a heavy, dull thud and the sound of something falling to the floor. After that, everything sank into silence. I jolted awake from the nightmare, my heart beating out of rhythm, my back cold. That dream was far too vivid. Aunt Cho. In the dream, Shen Jinglan had called out this name. I switched on the light and discovered the study door was ajar. I clearly remembered that I had locked it tight before going to sleep. I stepped inside and saw the bottom drawer of the desk. The drawer that was originally locked tight was actually open. Inside lay quietly a black leather diary. My heart skipped a beat. Was Shen Jinglan guiding me? Trembling, I flipped open the diary. The content of the diary was mostly about financial investments and mundane daily life, and the handwriting was identical to the note she left for me, elegant and sharp. I quickly flipped through, and finally, in the second half of the diary, I found a name appearing frequently, abbreviated as Z. The diary recorded how Shen Jinglan and her business partner, Z, had cooperated on an investment project. Later on, she discovered Z had secretly embezzled a large sum of money to pour into crypto, resulting in a total loss, leaving a massive financial hole. Shen Jinglan wrote in the diary, "I can't believe Z could do this kind of thing. Years of trust aren't worth a penny in the face of greed. I must make that person take responsibility for their evil deed, no matter what the consequences are." This was her very last diary. Entry the date. Written on, being exactly 1 day before she passed away. Suddenly, a piece of news mentioning Aunt Cho made the blood in my body instantly turn ice cold. Holding the diary, I went back to the living room and asked into thin air, "Shen Jinglan was the person who killed you?" Aunt Cho. The moment I finished speaking, the temperature in the entire room suddenly plummeted. The crystal chandelier overhead began to shake violently, the light bulbs flickering, continuously emitting a sizzling electric sound as if it could explode at any second. The picture hanging on the wall fell to the ground, shattering with an ear-splitting crash. This was the first time I saw her most intense reaction, which wasn't just rage, but bone-deep hatred and a grudge suppressed for far too long. This reaction confirmed all my suspicions. Shen Jinglan didn't die from an accident at all. She was murdered, and the villain was still walking free outside the law, the very person who always flashed a gentle smile at me. The scheme underneath Aunt Shu was truly like a sharp blade, piercing through the peaceful veneer of my life. I looked at this home where Shen Jinglan took care to keep spotlessly clean without a single speck of dust. For the first time, I felt the meaning of chilled to the bone. This woman was murdered by the partner she once trusted the most, her spirit, trapped in this house day after day, repeating living habits from when she was alive, unable to even speak the truth about her death, while the villain was still playing the good person out there, even daring to show up in front of me. I couldn't just fold my hands and watch. I stared into thin air and said word by word, "Shen Jinglan, rest assured I will help you put that person right where she belongs." The lights in the room stopped flickering right in front of me. I can't just fold my arms and watch. I looked into the air and said word for word, "Shen Jinglan, rest assured I will help you send that bastard to where he belongs." The light best right now. I'm extremely weak, returned to warm tones. I took a deep breath, starting to make a plan. I needed evidence. The diary was an important clue, but still not enough to convict. I needed to force Aunt Cho to reveal her tale herself. Using the excuse of being interested in financial investment and wanting to consult an expert, I got back in touch with Aunt Cho. This time, I made an appointment to meet her at a noisy outdoor restaurant and had already turned on the recording feature on my phone. Aunt Ju arrived on time, still with that same friendly expression. You're really so ambitious, you just changed jobs, and you're already starting to plan investments. You know I'm scared of being poor. Laughed self-deprecatingly, then I shifted the topic. Mainly it's thanks to you, Aunt Jo, for having a keen eye, introducing such a good house to me, making my luck completely turn around. Speaking of which, I'm still pretty curious about the previous owner of this house. I heard when she was alive she was also an elite figure in the finance world. I wonder if she did investments. I stared straight into Aunt Ju's eyes when mentioning the name Shen Jinglan. Her pupils contracted almost imperceptibly. Right, Miss Shenna, rare talent. Pity that talent comes with a short life. Her answer was airtight, her tone full of regret. Recently at home I found a few diaries she left behind, as well as notes. Among them are many technical jargon words I don't really understand. Aunt Jo, you were close. With her, maybe take a look for me. I threw out bait. Aunt Jo's expression finally had a slight shift. Her hand holding the teacup froze mid-air. A diary. Someone else's personal belongings. We'd best not look through them randomly. You living there? Haven't you encountered anything strange? She didn't answer my question. On the contrary, she subtly probed me about strange occurrences. Like what? I pretended not to understand. For example, hearing noises at midnight or furniture moving on its own, for instance. Her voice lowered extremely low, her eyes showing a probing look. My heart clenched. She was testing me. She wanted to test my reaction to see if I actually knew about the existence of Shen Jinglan or not. Nope, I sleep very well. I smiled with a face full of innocence. Maybe because I have strong fate. Luck. During that meal, both of us were probing each other. Neither got the answer they wanted, but since that day, I felt like an invisible pair of eyes was following me. On the way back home from work, I always felt there were footsteps, sometimes close, sometimes far, behind me, but when I turned around, there was nothing there. The paranormal events inside the house also started to become less friendly. No longer were they neatly arranged house chores or subtly left on lights. In the middle of the night, from the living room suddenly echoed the sound of knife grinding. Rhythm by rhythm, sounding strangely spine-chilling, and quiet night on the mirror inside bathroom. A fresh red bloody handprint suddenly appeared, just like someone had just struggled and crawled out from inside. I knew this was not done by Shen Jinglan. Shen Jinglan's supernatural presence carried orderliness and an awkward type of gentleness. While these things were filled with pure malice and intimidation, it must be Aunt Ju. She probably used some method or found someone to deliberately play ghost tricks to scare me into moving away. She was scared. She was scared that from Shen Jinglan's belongings, I would discover something that shouldn't be seen. Late one night, I was woken up by a nightmare. I saw on the bedroom window condensed, thin layer of mist. On the layer of mist, a few characters were gradually emerging. It was Shen Jinglan. She had used all her energy to write 3 words, very dangerous. Her handwriting was no longer firm like before, but became jagged and crooked, as if it could fade away at any second. My heart skipped a beat. She was protecting me even though she herself was trapped in this place. The first thing she thought of at any moment, leave me? My heart tightened for a beat. She was protecting me even though she herself was trapped in this place. The very wait until my body gets a bit better I'll go was still wanting me to get out of this dangerous whirlpool. I walked over to the window using my hand to wipe away those 3 words. Facing the cold glass, softly yet firmly I said, I'm not leaving. This is our home. The one who has to leave is her. The next day, I took time off work, buying online a micro camera disguised as charger plug and another disguised as an ornament trinket. One was pointed straight at the main door, one placed at a corner of the living room, while another was hidden on the bookshelf in the study room. Aunt Ju, you wanna play? I'll play with you to the end. On the 3rd day after installing the cameras, Aunt Ju's phone call came. Gwa, are you home? Lately, the gas company is doing area safety inspections. As a broker, I need to cooperate with them to go directly to check the pipe conditions at your place. See, when it's convenient. Her voice sounded just as enthusiastic as usual, full of responsibility. But I knew she was about to come over. Checking the gas pipes was indeed a great excuse. Not only could she walk right into a room fair and square, but also pave the way for her next plan. Suppressing the disgust in my heart, I replied in a relaxed, "Nah, sure, I'm actually at home. Day 2, you can come over anytime." Hanging up the phone, I immediately left a message for Shenjinglan. I wrote on a sticky note, "She's coming over soon. Play it by ear later." After writing, Sha placed the note in the most visible spot in the living room. Half an hour later, the doorbell rang. Looked through the peephole on the door and saw Aunt Jo wearing the blue uniform of the gas company, but her eyes flashing a sharp gaze had already betrayed her. I opened the door, pretending to be enthusiastic. As I led her in, "Aunt Jo, sorry for the trouble." "No trouble, no trouble at all. It's for the residents' safety." As she spoke, she took off her shoes and stepped into the house. Her eyes, from the moment she entered the room, had never stopped scanning. She was like a venomous snake, darting her eyes all over the living room, dining room, balcony. And finally, her eyes landed on the study room, right on that tightly closed door over there. "Let me check the pipes in the kitchen first." She walked towards the kitchen, and I followed behind her, watching her fake her way around the gas stove and water heater, tapping and hitting them. But her mind was completely not on it right at this moment. Dining chair under her feet suddenly slid backward half a meter, making a small friction sound. "Who's that?" Aunt Jo jumped up like a startled rabbit, her face turning pale as she turned her head back. In the living room, there was no one in sight. "What's wrong, Aunt Chu?" I pretended to be surprised. "No, nothing, must be eyes playing tricks on me." She tried to keep calm, but cold sweat beaded on her forehead. This further confirmed she had a guilty conscience. A person who didn't do shady things. How could she be scared by a moving chair into becoming like this? After checking the kitchen, she wiped her sweat. "I'm going to the bathroom for a moment." I nodded, standing right in place. Through reflection from the mirror in the corner of the living room, I closely monitored every single movement of hers. She had only taken 2 steps when she abruptly changed direction, tiptoeing toward the study room. She was going for it. Her target was Shenjinglan's relics in the study room. My heart was hanging in my throat. Right at the moment her hand was about to touch the study room doorknob, a loud bang echoed the light bulb in the bathroom. Suddenly, exploded glass, shards flying everywhere. Right after that, the faucet at the sink, shower head, the toilet water tank, all the places that could spout water automatically burst open all at once. The rapid, wild water jets spouted out. Aunt Shu let out a miserable scream, scrambling and crawling as she fled from the study door, looking in horror at the bathroom flooding like Mount Jinshan's water rising. I immediately rushed over, pretending to look even more panicked than her. "Oh my goodness, what on earth is happening?" Aunt Ju, and her too. "Oh my God, what on earth is going on? Sis Chu, are you okay? This house." She pointed her finger toward the bathroom, her lips trembling, unable to form words. It's often like this. You get used to it and it's fine." Feigned rushing over to turn the water valve while helplessly saying, "Must be because the pipes are getting old." Aunt Shu looked at the mess inside the bathroom, then looked over at the living room, which was strangely quiet. Her face turned green and pale by turns. She no longer had enough courage to step closer to the study room again. "Well, go I see the two pipes have no problem at all. I still have stuff to do at the company, so I'll take off now." She practically broke into a run, rushing out the door to slip on her shoes. Right at the moment, she opened the door and squeezed through to leave. She turned back to look at me once. That glance no longer had any pretense left, cold and vicious, filled with unhidden murder intent. My heart clenched, but I didn't dodge at all, calmly meeting her gaze. The door slammed shut with a bang. I leaned my back against the door, letting out a long sigh of relief. In the living room, the sticky note reading "Play It by Ear" fell quietly onto the floor. I stepped over to pick it up. I had won the first round. I immediately opened my phone to review the footage from the camera. The video clearly recorded Aunt Cho's sneaky behavior when she walked toward the study room along with that murder intent-filled gaze at the end. That was another piece of evidence, but I knew this failed probe would only make her even more frenzied. Next time, she wouldn't have any disguise left. The impending storm arrived faster than I thought. After Aunt Cho's probe failed, she completely dropped her hypocritical mask. She knew this house wasn't clean. She decided to exploit this point, pulling out the old trick again. She wanted to play the same script, wanting me to die as well in a meticulously staged accident. The night the gas leak attempt happened, I couldn't sleep soundly. My eyelids kept twitching constantly. 2 in the morning, when all things were silent, I was woken up by a heavy, dull sound in the living room. That sound was like someone climbing in from the balcony. The noise made upon landing, I became fully alert, instantly, goosebumps rising all over my body. It was Aunt Jo. I held my breath and silently crawled off the bed, hiding behind the bedroom door to peek outside through the crack. In the living room, a black figure was moving slowly. In her hand she held a tool bag, walking straight toward the kitchen. My heart was beating wildly, almost wanting to jump out of my chest. I forced myself to remain calm, reached my hand over to get my phone at the head of the bed, setting screen brightness to the lowest level. With trembling fingers, I dialed 911. Right at the moment the call was connected, I did not say a word, just pointing the receiver toward the living room. This was a survival skill I had seen on the news. Silent crime reporting. The operator would default that you were in danger and proceed to track the signal. After doing all that, I immediately opened the camera app, turning on the live stream feature. Then, I took the live link along with a pre-written distress message and quickly sent it to my buddy Chen Zihao. Bro, if anything happens to me, this is the evidence. Don't call the police, just wait for the police to contact you. After sending the message, I gripped my phone tightly, hiding behind the door, not daring to move even a bit. In the living room, Aunt Jo had reached the kitchen door. She intended to go in to play her tricks. Right at the moment, she pushed the kitchen door open. An ear-splitting slam echoed. The kitchen door slammed shut right in front of her face. Next, from the direction of the lock, came a dry click of metal. The door had been locked from the inside. Aunt Jo was startled violently by this sudden turn of events. Right after that, she snapped back to her senses and began pounding on the door hysterically. Open up! Open the door for me! Who's inside? Get the hell out! Here! Her voice became harsh and grating due to panic and anger. I looked through the door crack. In midair of the living room, translucent silhouette was oscillating violently. It was Shen Jinglan. Her figure was fainter than ever before, like a stream of blue smoke. Was Shen Jinglan, her faint figure, paler than ever, like a plume of blue smoke, about to be blown away by the wind. I could feel that just closing and locking that door had consumed almost all of her energy. She was using her very existence to buy time for me. Aunt Jo couldn't break the door open, so she started using her feet to kick the solid wooden door, making creaking sounds as if it couldn't bear the pressure. Shen Jinglan's silhouette, after every single impact, became even more transparent. I saw her originally clear outlines starting to blur, gradually fading away. My heart felt as if squeezed by an invisible hand, hurting so much I couldn't even breathe. I couldn't just stand by and watch her, for the sake of protecting me, have her soul scattered and destroyed. A surge of courage from who knows where instantly dispelled all my fear. I looked around in all 4 directions, my eyes stopping at the corner of the wall where there was a cast iron skillet I used for exercising. I rushed over to grab that heavy as heck skillet, holding it tight with both hands. Right at this moment, with a loud bam, the room door was kicked open by Aunt Jo. She was like an enraged wild beast, her eyes bloodshot. She rushed out. She saw me and saw the skillet in my hands. She let out a ferocious smile. Still wanna fight back today? Both of you gotta die. She rushed toward me right at this moment. I didn't back down at all, but instead charged straight at her, using all my strength. Smashed the skillet in my hands hard onto her head. Clang, a heavy dull sound echoed, and the world suddenly went quiet. The ferocious look on Aunt Ju's face froze. She looked at me with unbelieving eyes, and then her body went limp, collapsing down onto the floor. Blood from her temple slowly flowed down. At the same time, in the corner of my eye, the faint silhouette of Shen Jinglan finally turned completely into tiny specks of light, fading away into thin air. She was gone. A piece of paper gently fell beside my feet. It were familiar bloody lines of text, yet carrying an unprecedented protective gentleness. Paid one, human life. This time all my strength felt drained in an instant. The skillet slipped from my hand, making loud clatter. I knelt on the floor, looking at that blood-colored receipt, tears streaming down like a waterfall, yet unable to make any sound. All the danger had finally passed. I was saved in a miraculous way, but my world was also empty now. The police arrived just in time, dragging unconscious Aunt Cho away. I was treated like a hero who defeated an evil enemy, wrapped in a blanket, and taken to the police station. The audio recording inside. I phoned the video from the home surveillance camera along with the live stream link I had sent to Chen Zihao. Became ironclad evidence to nail Aunt Chu's crime. Inside the interrogation room, facing a gentle female officer, counted the entire incident. Of course, I concealed Shen Jinglan's presence. I only said that after renting this house. I always felt like the house had an early warning function, such as when there was danger, the lights would flicker and objects would fall. This time was the same. The kitchen door suddenly closed on its own, helping me buy more time, call the police, and fight back. Maybe the previous owner of the house had blessed and protected me. I lowered my head and recounted softly. The female officer didn't probe further, only sympathetically patted my hand. Having these clues, the police quickly found a breakthrough from Aunt Cho's side. The diary calling records, bank statements, as well as her financial transactions with underground casinos all pointed clearly to one truth. Years ago, because of a failed stock investment, she didn't just embezzled a huge amount of client money specifically from Shen Jinglan, but also owed a massive gambling debt. After being discovered by Shen Jinglan and asked to turn herself in, she was driven to a corner and committed murder. First, during an argument with Shen Jinglan, she used a heavy object to strike her dead, and staged the gas poisoning scene to create a perfect accident. For so many years, she had always taken. The more she acts like that, the more her identity as a real estate broker to keep an eye on this house, fearing that a tenant might discover some kind of clue. When she realized that I and Shen Jinglan might have formed some kind of connection, she got the idea to commit murder, scheming to use the exact same trick to turn me into a new secret in this house. The truth was brought to light. A few days later, major media outlets were all reporting on the cold case, buried in the haunted house for so many years. The name Shen Jinglan was finally no longer attached to absurd words like accidental death anymore. Her wrongful death had been cleared. Sitting in the taxi, I looked at the news on my phone, letting out a long sigh of relief, returning to the place that she and I called home. Pushing the door open to walk inside, it was squeaky clean and neat. Sunlight poured through the floor to ceiling, window without a single speck of dust shining on everything. Everything was still exactly as it was when I left. Everywhere were traces of her existence, neatly stacked books. The spotless and squeaky clean floor, the spice jars clearly categorized in the kitchen, but I knew she was no longer here anymore. There would never again be bloody sticky notes about splitting food costs 50-50. There would be no warm lights left on with electric bills calculated separately. There would no longer be that blurred figure in that white dress late at night, ironing my clothes. For the first time, I felt a massive, suffocating sense of loneliness and grief. I walked over to the sofa, hugging the throw pillow that she used most often, burying my face deep into it, and then sobbed hysterically. Exhausted from crying, I began cleaning up the rooms. I thought she loved cleanliness so much to begin with. I couldn't Leave this place messy while cleaning. The study room I discovered underneath that diary. Another black ledger. It was the logbook between me and her recording. Every single item line by line. May 10th. Dinner on a 50-50. Split kuchen OS 25 yuan. May 12th. Washing dishes. Kuchen OS 5 yuan. May 15th. Taking out the trash. Kuchen OS 10 yuan. I flipped through page by page, laughing through my tears. This stingy miser flipping. The very last page thought it would be a total debt amount, but it was not a bill. It was a line of text. Guchen live well. Eat your meals on time, remember. The inner defense line in my heart completely collapsed. The second I saw this line of text, clutched that ledger. Crouching down onto the floor, sobbing like a child abandoned by the whole world. Life had returned to the so-called normal track. I continued, going to work at my dream company. Every day inside those cubicles of the office building, played the role of an adult with stable emotions. Not a single person knew what kind of horrific life or death crisis I had just survived, nor did anyone know how important of a person I had lost. I didn't move out. Chen Zihao had advised me many times. He said this place brought back too many painful memories that I should change environments to start fresh. I refused. I said, "This is my home." I began, unconsciously abiding by the rules between me and Shen Jinglen. After finishing meals, I would immediately wash the dishes squeaky clean, wiping them dry before putting them back in the cupboard. When the trash bag was full, I would throw it out right away, absolutely, never leaving it overnight in front of the door. I started learning to cook. Even though I cooked terribly, I still insisted on cooking portions, or two. I would place the remaining portion on the opposite side where the chair was still left empty. And then I would just ramble endlessly to thin air about the things I encountered at the company today, about the weird clients I met, about the project bonus I had just received. I knew there would be no reply anymore. There would be no sarcastic comments roasting my taste appearing on the mirror surface anymore, nor any music. These are the remote consultation opinions regarding the mirror anymore, nor was there any music sound. Classical music ringing out every time I was down. But I still stubbornly insisted on holding on to these habits as if doing so, and she had never really left. I started throwing myself headfirst into work. Putting in more effort than any time before, I managed to land a few big projects, getting promoted and raised in salary. My career skyrocketed like a kite in the wind, colleagues all said. I seemed to have turned into a different person, calm and decisive like a tireless machine. Only I knew that I wanted her to see it. I wanted her to know that I was actually living really well. I used my first generous project bonus to head to the suburban cemetery. I found Shen Jinglan's grave. In the photo, she looked so elegant and drop-dead gorgeous, exuding an arrogant aura that overwhelmed everyone. I placed a bouquet of white chrysanthemums in front of the grave, and after that, pulled out an invoice, printed on A4 paper, and lit it on fire to burn in the Joss paper basin. Written on it was rent, utilities, food security fees, and emotional distress compensation, totaling a whole lifetime. Shen Jinglan had paid it all off. In the next life, it's my turn to treat you. The firelight reflected on my face. I smiled, but tears fell down after finishing all these things. I thought the story between me and her had put a final period right here. Until that day, I had to work overtime until late at night because of an urgent project. I dragged my exhausted, battered body home and opened the door. Inside was pitch black darkness. Out of habit, groped my hand around looking for the switch on the wall when the familiar floor lamp in the living room lit up. I froze. My gaze slowly moved toward the dining table in the living room. On the table stood a piping hot glass of milk, steaming away. The white steam curled and drifted up under the light. My mind went completely blank, stood motionless like a statue rooted to the spot at the entryway, not daring to move, not even daring to breathe. Everything in front of my eyes was both familiar and surreal. How come my heart, after such a long period of quiet, was now starting to beat violently again? I tried calling out in a voice that was almost a whisper. I called out once. Shenjinglan. In the living room. It was terrifyingly quiet. Only that glass of milk was still constantly giving off heat. Jippant rubbed my eyes, lowering my head. Of course I was overthinking things. I let out a self-deprecating laugh just as I was about to change shoes. Right at that moment, I saw beside the glass of milk on the sticky note I used to leave messages for her something seemed to be gradually appearing. I held my breath, slowly staring at that tiny yellow piece of paper. A familiar line of text, written with black ink, pen word by word materialized. Clearly, light fee, 5 yuan. Milk fee, 16 yuan. Pay at the end of the month. My tears the moment I saw that pay at the end of the month. Line instantly burst out, not out of grief, but out of sheer wild joy, an unbelievable bliss upon retrieving what was lost. I couldn't hold it in anymore, crying and laughing at the same time as I yelled out toward the empty living room. Shenjinglan, you really are such a stingy miser. You really are a total tightwad. Under the figure that I had been longing for day and night was gradually condensing into shape, clearer than any time before. Even though she was still as translucent as before, I could clearly see her, wearing a white one-piece dress. On her face appeared a faint, familiar smile, both helpless and pampering. She didn't say anything, but her eyes said it all. Turns out, the sacrifice to protect each other that day hadn't caused her soul to be scattered and destroyed. It merely drained all of her energy, causing her to fall into a state akin to a deep sleep. It was my longing. For her it was the fact that I was still living well, day by day. It was my stubborn persistence was my own stubbornness when preserving the integrity of this house. Those intense thoughts and desires were like an endless surge of energy, waking her up, bit by bit, from her deep slumber. Why didn't you leave? I choked back tears, asking her. Your wrongful death has been cleared. You can go to the place you ought to go to now. She didn't answer directly. Her figure drifted over to the side of the shoe rack at the entryway, then pointed her hand at the cabinet door. Doubtful, I stepped over to open the shoe rack up. Next to a pile of shoes was a brand new pair of plush slippers made for women, quietly lying right there, a pair I had never seen before. That was the pair of slippers that last time I went to the supermarket for who knows what crazy reason I ended up buying and bringing home. Back then, I didn't know why I bought them. Either I just felt like this house should have a pair of slippers like this. Life seemed to have returned back to the starting point, but everything now was completely different. I looked at her helpless, smiling face, smiling along as well. That's right, where else would she go? This place is his home, and I am also her family. Sunlight streamed through window into the room, illuminating. Tiny dust motes dancing in the air, illuminating both souls. Leaning on each other, we will be each other's most special loved ones, continuing to write amidst this bustling city, our very own cohabitation story, and of course that logbook of sweet ills that can never be fully settled.